For Radnor Township, December 13. This is our second December meeting because of a lengthy agenda, and thank you to the board members for meeting a second time. First on our minutes for tonight, on the agenda for tonight, we'll look at the minutes of November 7. Did everyone get a chance to review those? Yes. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second item on the agenda, the minutes of last week's meeting, December 6th. Any comments?
Nice job so fast, Sue. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, number 3 on our agenda, we have subdivision 2011 S11 preliminary final for Rhett and Barbara Austell to subdivide existing 6.9 acre property into 2 lots at 727 County Line Road. That's Villanova, PA. Is the applicant ready?
Yes.
Great. If you can take us through the basics.
Excuse me. My name is Patrick Spellman with Yerkes Associates.
Thank you.
Mr. Estelle is here with me to answer any questions that you might have. It's a what we have is excuse me. We have about a 6.9 acre lot that we're looking to subdivide into 2, with the new lot being the rear lot number 2 back here up against the Blue Route. The primary residence is up on the proposed upper lot or forward lot on County Line Road. There are some steep slopes on the property which have been taken into account within that areas. One of the comments by the engineer was he felt there were more steep slopes. We've looked at that. He is right. So these numbers will change in the final plan, but there's more than sufficient net area to create 2 lots for the property. We need 1 acre. These numbers are in the order of 3 acres each. Net area after we subtract the right of ways, the access leg, and the steep slopes, and no wetlands on the property. There is no proposed construction at this time. It is simply to subdivide off the lot. At this point, it's unclear how long it will be before any construction, if any. If ever, is going to happen. So we don't have we do not have the supporting plans for that because there's no plans for construction at this time.
So you're not proposing any changes to the existing building on proposed lot 1?
That is correct. And with that, I'll open up the floor to questions.
Well, before we look at the
I guess one last point. The engineer's comment letter, we accept all the comments without reservation.
Okay. Does the board have any questions before we talk to the engineer? Okay, great. So we have David's letter. Do you want to take us through anything that you think is especially significant in your comments? I know some of it's minor details, but is there anything you'd like to point out?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's the best way to classify it. Most of the issues are fairly minor, and the applicant is willing to comply. I guess the only thing I'd bring to your attention is they do need a waiver from providing significant man-made features within 500 feet. They provided us with a 8.5 by 11 aerial photograph of the area, which I would find to be acceptable, but they still would require the waiver. Other than that, my comments are fairly cosmetic, just modifying the plan to address some minor issues, and asking them to perform soil percolation tests to verify that there is a suitable area out there for sewage disposal, because really we shouldn't be subdividing a property if we can't confirm that the lot is in fact buildable. So other than that, everything is pretty straightforward.
I had one question about the slopes on the access drive. It looks like some of the steep slopes are right against the existing drive. Yeah, right in that area.
Correct.
Given where the new property line is, are we creating a situation where you're going to have to move the access drive from its present bed and disturb those slopes? Would it be easier to, or more efficient, to actually move the property line so that you can use the existing roadbed?
I guess we had planned to execute an easement both ways, so that Lot 1, so I checked that, I'm sorry. So Lot 2 would have the right to use that driveway for that portion of the property. I think what you're asking is that would it make more sense to take this leg line and move it out another 5 feet or so that there's no need for any such complication. And I'll talk to the applicant about it, but it makes sense to me.
I just thought either one of those solutions would work rather than to rebuild the road, disturbing the steep slopes.
Right, we were not, right, exactly, yes. So to avoid disturbing the steep slopes, we had thought about the easement. Moving the line is another option.
Okay, thank you. Comments?
I had one question. I don't see it distinctly, but that we try to avoid creating flag lots, and I'm trying to understand how an interior lot is not a flag lot.
It is an interior lot. I mean, there's nothing that prohibits creating one. I mean, there's actually a section for interior lots which they need to comply with. In other words, the lot area and the lot width have to actually be increased for interior lots, and they are in compliance with that. So,
Dave, if this subdivision were to take place, is proposed Lot 2 large enough that it could be further subdivided in the future? Are we concerned that we'll now have, one interior lot might become 2 interior lots without access to a roadway?
Technically, it might be subdividable, but when you subtract out the steep slopes and things of that nature, and the fact that you'd have to have on-lot sewage, it probably would not be subdividable. But I mean, I guess if the applicant would be willing to, as a condition of approval, put a prohibition against further subdivision, maybe that would address the matter.
Once the lots are subdivided, following up on Julia's question, are there really the number of steep slopes on Lot 2 that would be an issue? I mean, they look to be predominantly on Lot 1, unless you're saying the changes that you were seeing, there's going to be some changes to the plan to show additional steep slopes. Are they all on Lot 2, Dave?
There are some on Lot 2 and some on Lot 1. I mean, there are a few areas on Lot 2 that we picked up that we think should be steep slopes. Again, it won't affect this subdivision, but if you were to further subdivide it, it could be an issue.
Any other board comment? Is there any public comment? Okay, thank you. Dave, are we looking to have a motion on this tonight, or is this just a preliminary?
I think the applicant's probably looking for some sort of approval, and I would recommend approval because everything is in good order.
Okay.
I think my only comment, I agree with Julia about, I'm remembering that there's the applicant that we saw at Newtown Road, forget the name of the property, but the driveway is partially on the property of 2 people who back up to the road that's right behind it, and they're moving, in that potential subdivision, they're moving the road, the driveway. Do you remember that? You know what I'm talking about. This seems to be the same kind of slightly messy situation with the lot line, going through the driveway, and by moving Lot 1's line and putting all of the driveway into Lot 2, it just seems to be cleaner. So I think I agree with Julia, and it would allow you to not have to deal with the steep slopes that are just to the south of the driveway.
Would you have the numbers that you need for Lot 1 if you were to slide that property line up?
Do you have the setback you need? I think the acreage is fine, it's the
Yeah.
setback
It's
maybe.
a setback.
Yes, yes, we would. So there's about 111 feet. And the setback aggregate here on this side, 35.
The only issues that woodshed would be in the setback line. It's already still, and it's already still partially in the setback line anyway, you're right, it's a
Right.
pre-existing.
Right.
I mean, we could ask for them to tweak that line. It wouldn't have to move the whole line. They could even just put an angle in there, which, we prefer straight lines, of course.
Right.
But sometimes if there's a good enough reason, we can have a line with an angle in it.
I have a hypothetical. If perhaps a residence is going to be constructed on Lot 2 someday, would that be roughly where the stone barn ruins are?
That would be the plan. Yeah.
So would the driveway then necessarily be removed for that leg as it goes out to the point?
Out to here?
Yeah.
There's an existing driveway there, so, excuse me, an existing garage out there, so that would probably stay.
Okay.
Either way, Lot 1 is going to need we were just talking about the existing driveway right now for proposed Lot 1 already needs to have some kind of easement, because technically Lot 2 owns the majority of that, right? If
Correct.
I'm understanding the black and white.
Correct.
Okay.
You are correct. So, yes, there will always be an easement in favor of Lot 1 for this portion
For that
right there.
portion. Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with whether it's handled through an easement or a lot line change. I just wanted to be assured that we weren't creating a situation where the road bed had to be moved. Yeah.
Right.
And
I
it
mean,
sounds like that's covered.
They need an easement anyway, so that's maybe
Right.
not as much of an issue
Yeah, I agree.
for the beginning of the driveway.
Any
Dave,
further-
you have that on here as a condition, right, that the easement would be recorded for the access for the driveway?
Yes, under our general comments, we have a comment stating that they need to have a shared
Right.
access easement.
And that'll be written out. It's so uncommon for me to move to approve a plan. I move that we approve this plan. I limit myself to one a night.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Good night.
Susan, or just a clarification, was that a preliminary final
No,
approval?
I think this came in as a final, right? Preliminary final?
Well, it came in as preliminary, shouldn't they correct
Well,
that?
I mean, technically, it's supposed to be a two-step process, a preliminary and then a final, but you could recommend preliminary final and let the board decide.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Is everyone clear on that?
David, it's fine as a preliminary final. Yeah.
Just to make sure we clarify that for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have subdivision 2011 S12 preliminary Boathouse Realty Association, which we're calling Bentley Homes, to subdivide an existing 4.63 acre parcel into 10 residential lots at 1430 County Line Road. So if the applicant would like to take us through.
Okay, well, we've been here before. It's good to see you again. Basically, this is the plan that we came in with an engineered plan that was 16 lots, maximum density. We went from 16 to 14 to 12. You asked us to go meet with the neighbors, make them happy. You asked us to lose 2 lots. and to come up with a better traffic flow. And so now we're at 10 lots with the cul-de-sac. We had at one point 10 houses coming out through driveways on the county line. We now have 3 houses with driveways coming out on the county line. We have a cul-de-sac that's serving the rest of the houses. We've had many meetings with the neighbors, and we've also been before the Shade Tree Commission, and we have some follow-up stuff to do with them. But basically, this is, the engineered plan of everything we've talked about to date. The last time we were before you, there was a couple of common sense waivers that we talked about. The lot 2.5 to 1, the cul-de-sac length, sidewalks, a couple other things that the board was thumbs up on. And so basically, we've taken that and we've gone ahead and we've engineered it out, and we've gotten a letter from your engineer, which basically most of the things on there are kind of engineering issues. But I'm here to talk about any big issues that you would like to talk about. But our engineers have talked. I think we can handle most of the things that are on the list.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, what is can you just point out, oh, that's a better plan. I can see it there. I can't see it on this plan.
If you,
Maybe they could zoom. Is the cameraman on today?
Yep.
Maybe he could zoom in a little bit. Which lot are you talking about?
No, I'm fine. The plan didn't really show the driveways, this plan, so this one does.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cameraman, wherever you are.
So for the rear lots and even all the lots on the cul-de-sac, I guess have off-street parking for 2 cars?
Yeah, well, one of the things you wanted to have more off-street parking, so we kept the large bulb. We came in and met with your staff and had your safety guy look at it and had your engineer look at it, and we settled on, we still have an 80-foot cul-de-sac bulb, and we have enough to have parking on one side on the throat of the cul-de-sac. We also, I don't know if you remember the original plan we came in, we had 6 houses that were served by 2 driveways. So we had, and your ordinance actually allows that, so we had 3 common drives that were all one.
Right.
What we've done is we've gotten to the point where we have 1 common drive, whereas we had a lot more before, and the other 3 houses are served directly onto the cul-de-sac. I mean, really, we were trying to hit a price point. This is a much nicer plan than the original plan we came in with, and we're hoping we can sell the houses for a little bit more money. But we've added a lot of expense to the project with the cul-de-sac and the lesser lots and stuff. But I think it's a good plan. I really do.
I have a concern that obviously there are many more lots shown on the earlier plans, and I think this is a big improvement. I especially like that the pond and the wet area has been given quite a bit more space. It's taken some of the pressure off of there. My concern is that the lot number has decreased, but if in exchange for that the buildings get larger by any equal amount, the overall building density on the site doesn't change as much as it sounds like, going from 16 or 12 lots to 10. So once these lots are in place, obviously if the lots are smaller, the building size of the homes is more contained by the lot size. And here it looks like there's a little bit more ability to go larger on the buildings once the lots are sold. Are you going to be?
I can answer that question.
Thank you.
It's a classic situation here. You asked us to talk to the neighbors. Neighbors were concerned about the skinny little houses that we showed on the first plan. One of our pledges to the neighbors was that we would try and vary the architecture on the front. And if you look at the houses along the front row, we really have 1, 2, 3 different looks in massing. And in those 3 different looks, we can do different elevations. So we wanted to try and keep one of the things the neighbors were really most concerned with was the character of the neighborhood. They didn't want to come down and have a lot of little skinny houses. We had all the garages facing forward. So we agreed to vary the garages from front load to side load, and actually lot 2 and 3 is a plan that we're designing specifically for this, with the garage in the middle, so I can have like a backyard, I can have a nice looking front, and I can get the driveway off of there. But these houses were always modeled to be about 3,200 square feet, and we're still thinking they're going to be about 3,200 square feet, which I think is in keeping with the neighborhood.
You know, I've been a fan of this to be a 6 or an 8 lot subdivision for a while. I think the 16 and the 12 were red herrings, or whatever the right word is for that. And the fact that you still need so many waivers to do 10 suggests that to me. It continues to suggest it. And a waiver on pretty important things like the radius of the cul-de-sac. You know, that's something that's going to impact safety and maneuverability on the street. Lots 7 and 6 particularly really won't, you know, they'll really have to utilize the cul-de-sac for any guests, because otherwise they'd block each other in the shared driveway. And, you know, I know that some of my colleagues on the commission were happy that it wasn't 16 and happy that it wasn't 12. I still felt like there was room to go to take this down to even 8. And I drove by, and then I actually read in the letter that the house has come down.
Correct.
I assume that's at your cost, but maybe that's my assumption.
What do you mean at my cost?
Did the owner of the current land take it down, or you took it down?
No, I own the land.
Oh, you gone ahead and purchased it?
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess you're assuming or presuming that all the waivers will go through, and that this is a cost, this plan's going to go through as you're presenting it?
Well, I don't assume anything. I mean, I appreciate the Planning Commission's support to date, and actually the waivers that we talked about were pretty common sense waivers to date, and the two more that we need are pretty common sense waivers. They've been granted, I think, before, and I kind of thought I got a thumbs up from the Planning Commission last time I was in here with the cul-de-sac length. We came in and met with your township staff regarding the cul-de-sac, and we added the cul-de-sac at a cost of probably $250,000 to eliminate the driveways. I mean, I could go back to the driveway plan, and I probably could. I really do believe I could squeeze more lots on here if I wanted to play that game. I'm trying to be a nice guy, you know, trying to get along. I really do. I firmly believe I could build smaller houses, and I know I could get more than 10 houses on here, and I don't have to put in a cul-de-sac. I'm really doing the cul-de-sac as kind of like I thought it was a negotiation.
David, the comment with the variance about the steep slopes, are they to a degree that it will adversely impact the impervious coverage of any of the lots?
Well, what drove the comment, stating there'd be a variance needed, was the fact that they're running their sanitary out to Lancaster Avenue, and there are steep slopes all along Lancaster Avenue, so they'd have to disturb the steep slopes to get the sanitary in. Subsequent to the release on my letter, I spoke to their engineer, and I understand they were discussing potentially maybe boring underneath the steep slopes such that there would be no disturbance of the steep slope. So if they were able to engineer a solution such as that, potentially they would not need a variance.
But we're talking about an area that's probably about 6 or 7 feet along Lancaster Pike.
It's I mean, I told you the last time you were here, I said it's getting there, and
No, I think we're getting there.
that's what I said.
yeah,
And you know, 8 would be there for me. That's how I feel about it. So it's still just getting there for me.
Well, I will tell you that we've had the neighbors in this area are extremely well informed, and we have been through a lot of different discussions with them. I think we've pleased 95% of them. I know we've met with the people that are most concerned are the people across the street from Lower Merion. We've had a number of meetings where they've been present, and we've also had a number of Radnor residents present. And I would guess that we've had maybe 6 or 7 meetings, maybe more. Probably 6. Yeah, 6 meetings. And we really tried to, we're trying to do good architecture. We're trying to do good planning. We're glad to be building in Radnor Township. We think it's going to be successful. And we think that the waivers we're asking for are really kind of common sense, minor waivers.
Any other questions before we talk to the engineer? Can you take us through your memo? It was quite a long memo.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's,
Again, skipping over the minor technical
yeah, I mean,
points.
I figure I'll touch on the waivers and a couple other items.
1 second, before you do that,
Yep.
we did not vote on the waiver for the Austell, the previous subdivision. Do we need to do that?
That's a 500-foot waiver?
Do we need to vote on that, or are we okay?
You probably should separate that out as a separate vote, or, you know, you should have raised it in the motion. So yes, since we already did the motion, let's do a separate vote on,
Okay, so when we finish up with this subdivision, remind me to take care of that.
yes.
Why don't you do us both at once?
Save trouble. Thank you. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Starting through the zoning section, number 5 deals with the riparian buffer setback. This is an issue regarding the seepage bed for Lot 6, encroaching slightly into the riparian setback. I think it can be dealt with, but it just needs to be adjusted. Number 7 is the variance we spoke of. Again, there are ways that can, there are engineering methods that can be used to get around this, but as the plan's presented, there would have to be a variance to disturb those steep slopes. In addition, on lot number 9, the applicant is proposing to construct a retaining wall to preserve the existing steep slopes. And based on the proposed construction for the retaining wall, it's supposed to be unit masonry retaining wall, which requires tiebacks, a geotextile tieback, which run several feet behind the wall, and therefore they would still disturb the steep slopes the way it's presented to install those tiebacks. So again, it probably can, there's an engineering solution, but they'd have to modify the wall such that they're not going to disturb those steep slopes. Moving on to subdivision and land development, item number 3 is a waiver request, or a waiver which is needed for the similar waiver that we just discussed with the Estelle tract, showing existing features within 500 feet. So again, something needs to be provided in that regard.
Which one is that, Dave?
This is number 3. This is showing existing features within 500 feet of the site.
You mean the intersection? Oh.
The whole site, it's, yeah, it's site-wide. You're supposed to show improvements, or excuse me, existing
Okay.
conditions.
Gotcha.
So, anyway. Number 6 is a waiver that the applicant requested regarding the right-of-way width for the private road. It's required to be 60 feet wide. They're proposing 40 feet. And this is a recurring question I have here. If the planning commission feels that sidewalk is not necessary or required along the cul-de-sac, then I would support this waiver. There's no need to have the additional right-of-way provided. However, if we feel that sidewalk should be provided, then additional right-of-way would be needed. Number 7. Again, the sidewalks. Sidewalks are required along a road, a private street, so therefore they would need a waiver to not provide the sidewalk, and they have requested that waiver. Number 9, the cul-de-sac length. There is a requirement to provide a minimum length of 250 feet for a cul-de-sac. This length is driven by liquid fuels. We can't get liquid fuels funds for roads shorter than 250 feet, but since this will be a private road, there's no liquid fuels issue, and therefore the proposed length of 180 feet I don't see as an issue, and we would support that request. Number 10 is the radius of the cul-de-sac. They're proposing a 40-foot cul-de-sac waiver, or excuse me, radius. And again, we have no objection to this so long as the planning commission feels sidewalk is not needed. Number 11, This has, again, a lot of these are sort of repetitive because they deal with the street construction and the right-of-way widths and cartway widths, and this one requires a 60-foot right-of-way width. Again, if sidewalk is not needed, we would support the reduction to 42 feet. Moving on to number 14, there's a requirement that intersecting roads cannot be constructed less than 600 feet from an adjacent intersection. The proposed cul-de-sac is approximately 550 feet from Lowry's Lane. Therefore, a waiver is needed from this section. We would support the waiver so long as there's adequate site distance. Number 16, this has to do with access to a major collector. County Line Road is considered a major collector, and lots 1, 4, and 5 are going to have direct access to County Line Road, and so therefore a waiver is required. We would, again, similarly recommend this waiver be granted so long as there's adequate site distance provided. Number 19 is a waiver for lots 9 and 10. There's a requirement that lots are not to be more than 2.5 times deeper than their width. These lots 9 and 10 do not comply with this requirement. There's no technical reason this waiver can't be granted. And the remainder of the items under subdivision land development are fairly detailed items, engineering issues, which I think easily can be addressed. Similarly, with the stormwater management section, I have several items there, but again, they're just technical issues that can be, just simply addressed by revising the plans. I mean, I can go through my general comments, but again, they're just pretty much just plan items. Nothing. I mean, I'll answer any questions you might have, but I mean, they're really nothing substantial.
Anybody have questions for Dave?
I do have one question. Under general comments, number 3, the township's emergency service personnel had recommended no parking along the cul-de-sac bulb and one of the private road. Where are the guests going to park on this street that's not wide enough such that the emergency service personnel are saying put up no parking signs, which gets back to the waiver?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll have to read my comment again. It should be reading such that they can park on one side of the street. It's only no parking on one side of the street. So there is available parking probably for 4 to 5 spaces on the cul-de-sac.
But not in the bulb at all.
Well,
The way I read that is no parking along the cul-de-sac bulb and one side of the private road.
So the plan that the emergency service representatives reviewed actually had a smaller cul-de-sac bulb, so I'll re-review it with them. I think potentially we can, based on the analysis they gave me before, I think they probably could permit maybe 1 or 2 spaces between the driveways for lots 2 and lot 10, 2 additional spaces, because the cul-de-sac bulb is now larger than it was previously.
we had come in with a smaller cul-de-sac bulb, and that's when we met with your staff, and they recommended we go to the bigger one, and I think this comment is overlapping that, just like he said.
Okay, so we'll need clarity on that.
And then is there parking along the shared drive? Is that considered a private road, or that's just considered the shared drive to 7 and 6?
That's a shared drive.
So there'd be parking in the driveways,
Yeah,
but not really along the road. There wouldn't be enough room.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could make that wider. I mean, one of your, the lady that sits down there, I forget her name. She's the one who wanted to have the wider 20-foot entrance so that there would be room in case somebody did park. I mean, technically, there is parking along there, and so you could still get a car on the side and get around. We could make it bigger. The more pavement we have, the more impervious we have. I think the other thing to keep in mind, too, is, as far as the wall comment that he made about the wall around on Lot 9, we were proposing to do that as a boulder wall, so it wouldn't require the geogrid to go in. So, I mean,
That's fine. It was
Okay,
just the
yeah,
detail
yeah.
that was provided was
All
a
right.
unit masonry.
Okay. And, a lot of the changes a lot of the waivers he talked about were waivers that specifically relate to the cul-de-sac and, kind of the reasons we changed the plan in the first place. If you listen to him, about 90% of those waivers are about the cul-de-sac, about the changes we made to get away from, having all the driveways go on the County Line Road. So we don't want to be penalized for changes we made to make the plan better.
I have a question about the bulb. Hypothetically, has anyone calculated how many cars you could actually have parked in there?
We did. We
How
did
many?
it with a smaller one, and I think we did it with a bigger one. Do you know?
The smaller one could actually still fit 3 or 4 cars, and
I'm sorry, could you come up to the mic?
Dave Gibbons from D.L. Howell. The smaller bulb that we actually analyzed and provided the emergency services, we were able to fit 3 or 4 cars strategically around it and still be able to maneuver a fire truck in and out. So with a larger radius bulb, I still believe we could probably fit 4 or 5 around there. But we could definitely take a look at it.
How small was the smaller bulb?
It was 60 feet as opposed to 80 feet diameter. So it was 10-foot radius or 20-foot diameter difference. We can provide a plan, though, showing cars around it for you next time.
What's the plan with the wall along Lancaster Avenue?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I asked about the plan for the wall that's on Lancaster Avenue.
Actually, I would like to save the wall along Lancaster Avenue, and we're showing a landscape berm behind the wall, which I think will benefit the whole County Line Road area because, there's a fair amount of noise that comes up that chute there. There's no blockage at all, especially in the wintertime. So we're proposing to keep the wall and then have a berm start at the base of the wall and go up maybe another 5 or 6 feet up behind the wall, but the wall would still be there. I thought everybody liked the wall.
I
Yeah.
asked.
I have to speak up for Doug because he's not here.
Go ahead.
I think, did he suggest on this particular plan that even if we weren't going to tear down the wall and/or the berm wasn't going to be landscaped, that the township would reserve the right to require a sidewalk at some future time? Was that on this plan? Or should it be on this plan?
I thought that was along County Line Road.
It is, no, I think you're right, because a lot of neighbors came up, well, we'll hear from the public in a minute, but they came up and some people were in favor of a sidewalk on that side of Lancaster Avenue, others
And
were
some weren't.
opposed. There's already kind of a walking path, I believe, at this point.
And the other thing is, I just wanted to verify, does the Lower Merion side of County Line have a sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready for public comment? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to open this up to public comment. Please state your name when you come up to the mic. And let us know also, where you live.
Good evening. My name's Michael Mulroney. I live at 1045 East Lancaster Avenue, downstream from the property. In June of this year, I gave you a mercifully short memorandum expressing my concern about stormwater runoff. I'm delighted to see that the engineer's report has at least an outline of that, and I'll be extremely interested to see how that plays out in terms of specifics, so my concern remains for the time being unabated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hello. I'm Maureen Devlin. I'm at 1440 County Line Road, Radnor resident, and we are adjacent to Lot 1. I want to thank Mr. Bentley. I think he's done a wonderful job trying to meet with neighbors and to listen to what our requests were. There's two things I wanted to say. One is regarding sidewalks. I would really like to get in there that we, a group of neighbors, are really opposed to having a sidewalk on the wall side adjacent to this development. Basically because there is a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street. The township just recently spent a fortune lighting the intersection of Lowry's Lane and Lancaster Avenue. It's like a heliport. It's so well lit that people can come down from Villanova, cross to the south side of Lancaster Avenue, and continue down that side of the street up against the Radnor Arms and the apartments. So therefore, we don't have, and shouldn't, and would like not to have, pedestrians on the side of the road that is adjacent to the new neighborhood, as well as the people that live right along there, right along the street. It's not necessary. The kids already know to cross, and the only people that are currently using that are actually people that are trying to get to a bus stop, and it's not really necessary to, that does not have that much foot traffic. In addition, it's kind of narrow, and I think it's a safety issue should you start to put a sidewalk that close to the fast-moving traffic on Lancaster Avenue. I think you're going to end up with people that are book bags out in the, backpacks or book bags out into the traffic, and then you're going to have you'll have a safety issue. That's the Lancaster Avenue side. When it comes to sidewalks on the county line side, we have a wonderful, perfectly fine sidewalk on the Lower Marion side of the street. We walk, everybody has been used to using that. There's very little, I never have people, I'm right next to that, and I never have people on my lawn or looking for a sidewalk where they are. People use the opposite side of the street to go down Orchard or to continue down County Line towards Airedale. So there really isn't, and in addition, there is no sidewalk where we are. So it would be starting a sidewalk or, God forbid, asking us to put a sidewalk. It would just be and we have mature plantings up against the street. Particularly my house has mature plantings to screen us from oncoming headlights from Orchard right into my living room. Okay, so to require me to move those mature plantings would open my living room up to headlights. And one more thing about the bulb and the diameter and the width of the private road is that I think Mr. Bentley really tried hard to listen to our requests about the berm and about the landscaping between Lot 1 and my home, which is right adjacent to that. I think any additional width that's required is going to come back to say that lot number 1 would become more narrow because it's exceeding the requirement. So I'm grateful for the extra space between the properties right now, and would like to get in there that please don't ask him to make that the access road in the center going into the bulb, that the width of that is fine, right where it is right now, because if we exceed that, where that is going to go to is to cut off the other side up against Lot 1. Okay? Are you with me? Yes. Okay. And I just wanted to thank him again for his time and patience with meeting with us, and I think as far as it is, I can't comment about drainage or about any other issues because I don't have the expertise. I just know that I've lived in the neighborhood for 13 years and that this means a lot to us, the amount of time and effort in trying to make this part of our neighborhood and not a neighborhood itself. And I think that he's trying very hard to do that. So I wanted to thank him for that.
Thank you. Other comments?
1425 County Line Road. I've lived there for 18 years. 1425 County Line sits about right here. As I say, I've been in the neighborhood for 18 years, and I think one of the important things, for me anyway, is that we do maintain kind of the integrity of the neighborhood. I think, as Maureen pointed out, I think Tom has done a good job of working with us. Am I delighted about 10 houses? No. Can I live with 10 houses? I think I can, but of course it's up to you ultimately to decide what's important there. But there was some mention about the stone wall along Lancaster Avenue. That wall's been there, I suspect, for at least 100 years. Anything that we can do to maintain that wall, I think, would be terrific for the neighborhood. It would maintain some of the character, and I think what some of the people think fondly of in the neighborhood. You know, it's been there for so long, and I think that they think highly of it. Tom Bentley had also mentioned a berm along Lancaster Avenue. He also mentioned how in the wintertime there's not much to block the noise. I can tell you we're living that now. The amount of noise since the house came down right across the street from our house has increased quite a bit. It's not something we can't live with, but certainly anything that Tom can do and anything that the group can hold him to do as far as making sure that there is a nice berm there, a nicely planted berm, we would appreciate that being included in the plan. But other than that, as I said, I think Tom's done a good job of trying to work with us, and hopefully he'll continue to do that and live up to everything that he has said that he would do thus far. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tony Wilson at 1439 County Line Road. Lived there for 25 years. The only comment I have is it's not about the plan. It's really about the traffic, and over the years it's gotten really heavy, especially when school's in around 5 o'clock. And that whole area down from the train station to the light on Lancaster Avenue, and the way that street County Line comes down and butts into that cars are always jammed up in there. It's really tough to negotiate as it is. So that's one area that I think there's like a lot of safety. A lot of people, you can't see as you come down to the park. You really can't see as you're trying to get out. And so as you try to, a lot of people go over into the other side of the street and try to cross over, and you can't get around the cars because they're all blocked and it's a blind spot, and they come over the top on that from the Rosemont train station about 35 miles an hour as it is. So it's just very, I think it's a difficult, especially during when school's in, and it's not uncommon for the cars to back all the way up to Orchard, which is really at the top of the street, go all the way up. So that's the only comment, is that someone should take a look at the traffic, see if can do something about the patterns there. And because there's a stop sign right on Orchard, because they mentioned that 250-foot part, that was the Radnor side, but there's a stop sign right on Orchard and County Line, and that's only maybe to the driveway, I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet, something like that. So that's right.
Dave, are there any traffic considerations taken for a subdivision of this size? Any traffic impact?
No.
I mean, this is not like a...
Right, it's not large enough to warrant a traffic study. I guess if there's any minor...
Obviously, there's some ongoing
Right.
traffic issues in this neighborhood. And just speaking to the mic and just tell us what we're looking at.
Well, you're heading down County Line to Airedale, and that's the stop sign that's right down there, and then over, this is like Rosemont train station, and then there's a very short space.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
There's a very short
Thank you.
space of about maybe 30 feet from corner to the other light. So the timings of the lights and everything backs it up. So you get action all the time. They do turnarounds, pulling new driveways. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then here's another photo showing looking from the base up. And this one here is to point out is that what happens a lot of times, when I was saying before, is that they'll come down from here, then they'll drive right into here, and you can't see beyond the fenders. So and they're just they're still making their turns, because it's not you still can make a right-hand turn from there without restriction on heading up on Lancaster. So this area here really gets very, very confusing. So, I mean, you can just see by the pictures, and if it snows, then really hold back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Denise Moran. I live 1433 County Line Road. Right. Did you see where I pointed my house? Right across the street. My concern is if only 3 or 4 cars can be in the cul-de-sac, and you see that type of traffic, which is pretty common, where are the cars going to park on the street? So you have 10 houses. I mean, that's just a logistical question I'm asking. And that happens probably in the morning, in the afternoon. If someone had a party, where would everybody be parking? And it's just logistics of even getting now up. If you're parking on the street, then the cars are coming down. How do you even get back up? So that's the only thing I want to ask. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Is there parking on the Lower Merion side?
There's parking on the Lower Merion side. I think it's 2-hour parking outside of this.
And there's no parking on the Radnor side at this point?
2-hour parking.
Oh, 2-hour also? Okay.
And that was pretty much because of the train station, or maybe Villanova students. But I think originally, that's been there I've lived in my house for 20 years, and it's been there the whole time.
Just out of curiosity, have you had experience with a lot of ticketing to keep that
No
managed?
ticketing, ever.
Ever?
You mean ticketing in terms of parking?
Yes.
Never. Because no one parks there, because no one lives there. That lot has been empty, and they can park on our side.
But I mean ticketing on your side, on Lower Merion side, because it's 2-hour parking?
No, we're free parking.
Oh.
It's 2-hour parking on the Radnor side.
Oh, okay.
So where are they going to park? If they're then they're going to be parking across the street. People will be walking across the street. I mean, and also the entrance of where my house is and the entrance of the new subdivision, our driveways are very close to that. If you can see, I'll only point to it. Here's one and here's the other. So people coming in, it's just, I mean, I know that's the way it's going to be. It's just, I think it would be good if someone would actually look at that before it was built, in terms of safety.
The photographs we just looked at of the traffic backing up,
Mm-hmm.
that did show the Lower Merion side. I didn't see cars parked there, I just saw a line.
No, there weren't any, because we don't have a lot of people parking on the street. But if there were cars, which they're allowed to, then we would have a serious traffic jam. I mean, I'd like to put cars up and see how that would work. I mean, I don't want to do that, but I mean, I'm just worrying that there's going to be a serious problem going up and down the street during traffic, periods. Thank you.
One more.
Yeah.
Is there room for 4 cars? I mean, is there
I don't
room
know. That's what
to park on both sides of the street and 2 lanes of traffic?
I don't know. I think that's something that you might be
No.
interested in looking into. I mean, if I live, on County Line, and even just going to Villanova, I mean, that small little narrow street going behind Villanova, I mean, it is a
It's
nightmare.
only 30 feet wide.
I mean, you're going back, and there's one car on one side, no cars on the other, and people are just going, 35 miles an hour. Villanova students, going right for you. So, anyway, I know that's just my only concern, traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
David and Peter, how would ticketing or police enforcement on this private road work? I mean, what would stop guests of these people in the rear lots from parking on both sides of the street or of this newly formed private driveway?
Well, they're going to have to form an HOA to maintain the street. And as part of the HOA documents, they can put in there the parking regulations, and certainly that would be something we would look for that became a condition of approval. So that's how the restrictions would come into play. As for actual ticketing, if the HOA wasn't going to take care of it, which for a small one like this, they probably wouldn't like to, permission can always be granted. A request can be granted to placed with the township asking, could you please come enforce our parking regulations? And the township would then have that option of whether or not they wanted to take on that responsibility. But normally in HOAs, it's the HOA that enforces those.
I have a question about the cul-de-sac again. I noticed that the right-of-way on the driveway portion is 40 feet, and yet the curb lines are at 28, and yet looking at the bulb, it's the full extent of the right-of-way is curb to curb. Is that an aesthetic call, or is there some reason why that couldn't be a true 40-foot wide driveway?
Yes. One of the things we asked for when we came back is some relief on the cul-de-sac, because really if we put the cul-de-sac into all the full standards, we'd lose probably 2 more lots or another lot, and then I'd rather fight you guys on driveways at that point.
Setback is based on the right-of-way line anyway, right?
Right. So if the right-of-way line moved back.
No, I'm not saying move it back necessarily. I'm saying couldn't the curb be on the right-of-way line instead of 28 feet wide, 40 feet wide right there?
Widen the paved area.
mean on the
Widen the
throat?
paved area. Widen.
Yeah. You could, but can I just address some of the comments that have been made, because I just think we're getting a lot of things confused. First of all,
Let me ask first if there's any other public
Okay,
comment
okay.
first. I'm not sure. Did anyone else want to make a public comment? Thank you.
Hi, Tom Bentley again. We're confusing, and I understand where the neighbors are coming from. We're confusing parking and traffic. They're 2 different things. They can be the same problem. But as far as just parking goes, anybody on County Line that has a party has the same problem that my people have. I mean, I have, 5 houses right on County Line Road. If they're having a party, it's going to be just like any of the neighbors having a party or having guests over. They all have tiny little driveways, just like our tiny little driveways. So when they have a party, they park on the street. If we have a party, we have the right to park on the street according to the laws. So I really don't think the parking's an issue. I mean, we have some off-street parking for, if there's, a nanny coming or something like that. And I think we have, done that at the request of the Planning Commission. I think we probably could easily park 6 or 7 cars off-street, and probably some of the driveways could take 2 or 3 cars also. So I think the parking issue for parties and stuff like that is not an issue. As far as the traffic goes, we've reduced the number of lots, but the real problem that I see, and I am not a traffic engineer, but the real problem is that people come down thinking that they're going to get into a shortcut coming down County Line Road, and then they come over the crest, and there the cars are all backed up because Airedale's backed up. Really, that traffic during peak hours should be forced onto Lowry's Lane, where there's a traffic light, and you have a controlled situation where people can enter. They're trying to get to Lancaster Pike. I mean, you have people cutting across from, all down County Line Road and that whole area over there, kind of cutting the diagonal. So, I mean, the simplest thing to do would be to put like a peak traffic thing that says, no through traffic allowed during the hours of, when the peak traffic are. It's a sign. It's very simple. And, I feel their pain, but, I mean, my houses are going to actually add very little to that. I mean, we're going to we could get a traffic engineer if we had to, but it's going to add very little to that. But I just wanted to put some clarity. And also, as far as the lady that talked about the cul-de-sac being near her driveways, we moved the cul-de-sac away from her driveways. It was at one time almost directly across, and we actually moved it down to the side to try and get it away. In the neighbors, that's one of the things they talked about, is having driveways or cul-de-sacs So we spent a great deal of time with the planner and with the engineer trying to make it so that, all these driveways were not directly adjacent, and I think we did a good job. I mean, we're almost in the middle of this space right here, where, we were up closer. We shifted everything to the south. So we've tried. I mean, we have tried. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to please everybody, but we think we've done as much as we can. But the parking, I don't think it's an issue. The traffic is an issue, and I think it's solvable with a peak traffic sign.
Okay, let's open it up for board comment. Let's address this. What? Oh, okay. Maybe we could tackle the sidewalk issues first, because those have come up several times. There's two issues. One is the possibility of requesting sidewalk easement, or what they call a paper sidewalk, I'm not sure what the right term is, along Lancaster. One of the neighbors spoke tonight, and I know people have spoken previously and have said that they prefer not to have a sidewalk there. But I know that some of our absent board members, and I think myself also, are concerned that it might be important to get a legal sidewalk, even if it's not appropriate at the moment to build it, because this is the opportunity to do that. This is not going to ever get subdivided again. And that's something that, if it turned out in the future that was necessary for a safety issue or anything else, this would be the only time we could get that.
Well, actually,
Go ahead.
My only other thought about this is, although we've seen the plan several times as a sketch, this is our first time seeing it as an actual preliminary plan. And, I personally think there's a lot of information in here, a lot of waivers, big discussion about the sidewalks, the cul-de-sac size, even taking into consideration some of the neighbors' concerns about not wanting the cul-de-sac to be too big. Regina's just seeing it for the first time. She actually just had an interesting thought about the whole road access. I'm wondering how far we even want to go into discussion tonight with 4 members missing tonight.
I would think that we'd want to have at least a general discussion on whatever we can, so that at the next stage we get as many. I mean, this is even looking at the memo from David, this is a huge memo.
It is.
The next time we look at this, I would like to have a very short memo, because so many of these things have already been taken care of.
Well, then given that, if I could just make a comment about the very first waiver that they're requesting, which is about the waiver about the significant man-made features within 500 feet. We had several questions come up tonight about, in fact, one of them is later down the road, about how far away Lowry's Lane is, and verify the distance from the proposed private road to Airedale. This is the reason that we have the requirement to put in the full drawings showing all the features within 500 feet. There's a lot of neighbors, there's a lot of streets, there's a lot of intersections, there's a lot going on in this area. I don't think that this is an appropriate plan to grant this particular waiver. And I think that there might actually be significant information on a plan that shows that. And we granted it once a couple of months ago, and now every applicant is asking for it. And tonight's first applicant, I chose not to say anything about it. I am going to vote against it because I'm opposed to it on principle. I believe it's a requirement. I believe it serves a purpose. I think now that we've started granting it, every applicant who's come in since then has asked for it. And we're losing information potentially. The first applicant tonight, probably not a huge amount of information, given that they back up to the blue route. This applicant, given that several comments further down in here actually reference significant features close by, to me says we shouldn't grant that particular waiver. And you're right, so then let's start waving our way through some of the other things so that the next memo is cleaned up, and this cleaned up some stuff. But that's my comment about the first waiver.
Can I just clarify something on that waiver? I mean, I guess I should have been clear on this before. I am never recommending a full waiver of that requirement. It's just if you read the requirements of that section, they are supposed to be showing all storm sewer, all sanitary sewer, every utility within 500 feet of the property. And that's what I'm recommending a waiver from. They still should be providing, much as Cass Holloway did last week, an aerial photograph of everything within 500 feet, so we have a picture of what's going on. It just doesn't have to be the level of detail. So my waiver request, or my recommendations are always just for a partial waiver, so that the plan is provided. It just doesn't have the level of detail, such as, every storm sewer inlet within 500 feet. So just to clarify, they need to provide a plan, but just not the level of detail that.
I appreciate that, but we would see some of those streets and questions that came up if they were providing that plan, the plan that they're requesting for a waiver. An aerial photo, I mean, first of all, I don't even see an aerial photo of this one unless it's here somewhere.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. They're not providing one now.
Right.
But, and I'm just saying they need to provide us an aerial photograph, but they just, not to the level of the ordinance, because the ordinance would require them to provide, basically almost a land development plan for everything within 500 feet of the property.
Well, is there a happy medium where we
Yeah,
get
that's
more
exactly.
information than you'd get from an aerial photograph, like we get the distance to the roads and things, but we don't get, every tulip in town,
Right, and I mean, that's what we kind of shoot for. I mean, I find, as long as the aerial photograph is a quality aerial photograph, I think it gives us the information we're looking for. Now, I guess on a case-by-case basis and on a plan-by-plan basis, we can take a look at it and see if it's giving us what we're looking for. So I guess that's where I'm going with this. Have them submit a aerial photograph or something that tries to address this waiver, and then we can decide whether it's suitable or not.
Wouldn't a good strategy be on that aerial photograph to provide a lot of detail in terms of labeling and indicating what we're looking at? Distances?
Yes.
Expressly on something, either this plan or the photo.
Yeah, for a project like this, sure. But a project like the last one where it's just a two-lot subdivision, I think maybe it doesn't have to be quite the same level, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
We would be glad to do a detailed aerial showing, labeling everything that we think is significant in the area, and all streets, intersections, streams, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if I have enough money to pay somebody to do a complete survey of 500 feet. It's quite a task, but the photo, good clear photo with labeling, definitely could provide that.
And you're confident, David, that would provide at least the things that we've recognized tonight that are missing, like distances to roadways and those kinds of things that have come up this evening?
Yes, it sounds like we're on the same page, and let's see what they submit, and we can go from there.
You okay with that?
Yeah, no, we need some context. And we're starting to see that with maybe you're the first one to pick up on it, but the context is sometimes really helpful in these, dense neighborhoods where there's a lot going on that we do have to consider.
Oh, can we go back to the sidewalk issue? Is that all right? Because we talked about the sidewalk along Lancaster Avenue or the possible future sidewalk there, but also I don't want to forget that the memo also cites that we need to discuss as a commission the internal sidewalks and for the cul-de-sac area. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have just a question. Why not? What impact does it have to the development to put the sidewalks in?
I'm okay with sidewalks. We'd have to widen the right-of-ways a little bit, and one of the nice things we were able to do on this plan is the Radnor neighbor that was implicated, that was probably had the biggest impact from our development was Mrs. Devlin and Mr. Devlin, who got up here, and we were able to kind of push our houses to the right, still keep them wide so that we'd have a good frontage on County Line Road, and put in a little retaining wall and a berm with some extra trees along their property line, and and it's down to inches, trying to keep the houses looking nice in the front and trying to have the cul-de-sac with the right-of-ways and stuff. I think there's probably enough room to squeeze a sidewalk in there. I don't really, with the usage of the cul-de-sac, though, I just don't see the sense in it. We did agree that we would put in a paper, a place where there's enough right-of-way along County Line Road to have a sidewalk there, and I thought that was what you asked us for the first time. was to not do anything on Lancaster Avenue, but to have a place to put a sidewalk in on County Line Road, and I believe with a 50-foot right-of-way, there is enough room to put a sidewalk in. I believe that's what was said the first time.
Julia, Steve, you guys can picture my street.
And
right?
my street.
I mean, I live on a cul-de-sac. You live on a cul-de-sac.
I live on the corner of a cul-de-sac.
Right.
We have
And I live
6
down a
houses.
cul-de-sac.
We don't need a sidewalk.
We don't need a sidewalk on my cul-de-sac. I mean, this is one waiver I would grant you, just so you know. Because I live on a cul-de-sac, and we have 10 houses.
And the kids play, I mean,
We've had this conversation.
We don't need a sidewalk
yeah, I agree.
on our
Yeah.
cul-de-sac. But I'm trying to,
we need to discuss it because it's in
Right.
zoning, it's a requirement. We have to.
but I'm trying really hard to remember how, and to envision how wide my street is and how wide my cul-de-sac is, because that gives me a frame of reference for this, because I know, practically
yours is
speaking, how tight
120.
it gets when people are parked in front of my house and people are parked in front of my neighbors, when we're trying to turn around in the cul-de-sac. You know,
It's probably pretty similar to what he's proposing.
I think it's wide. I think my cul-de-sac.
I think it's slightly wider. Well, I don't know about the cul-de-sac, but the street is slightly wider.
I think we've probably got the 28 to 30 foot wide. You can picture the street.
Yep.
I know that my cul-de-sac's. I know that I feel like my cul-de-sac's bigger than 40.
Oh.
I will tell you one thing that your engineer will probably back up is that the tighter the space is and the more cars you have to slow down to move around, the slower the traffic is. I mean, if you look at Lowry's Lane on the south side of Lancaster Pike, there's always cars parked along there. There's barely enough room to get 2 cars by, and there's a lot of kids in that neighborhood. That's one of the most kidded neighborhoods in all of Radnor Township, because I see them waiting for their school buses when I drive my kids to school. And, you know, the cars go slow, and they go slow because, you know, there's not a lot of room. So, you know, all this stuff about big streets and big roads and lots of parking, it's not always a good thing. I mean, the tighter it is, the slower the people go. So just another point of view.
I think you had a safety review, though, as to parking on the cul-de-sac, and that the township felt that parking could be on one side of the
Yeah,
driveway.
we're okay with that, yeah.
Are you actually planning to do that?
Yes.
Okay, because I would think that's a disincentive for that homeowner on that side to have parking on that side.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of people parking on the cul-de-sac. I mean, there's nobody. Look at all the people that are on County Line Road. There's never any cars there. I mean, there's like 25 houses up and down County Line Road. I go there. I've been to the site like 50 times. I'm the only one that parks on County Line Road.
How wide would a street be with a right-of-way of 60 versus? I mean, I can see with a right-of-way of 40 feet, it's a 28-foot roadway. How wide do we go with a 60-foot right-of-way, or is it just that there's more right-of-way, but we don't have a significantly wider street?
It would just be a wider right-of-way. You could go any dimension. But I mean, 28 foot is the standard cartway width for a residential street in Radnor. So they are meeting the minimum requirement for road width.
any other?
Susan, I thought you said our newest member had a comment. I don't want to miss that.
Did you consider a U-shaped access rather than the cul-de-sac that would go between lots 1 and 2 and 4 and 5, so that none of those houses would have to have access to the County Line Road?
Actually, that was the very first plan we did, and
That didn't work?
did not work because. Are you familiar with Hopeton Lane? Okay, Hopeton Lane is probably one of the most darling places in Radnor Township. It's on Abrams Lane, and it's where Hope Montgomery Scott built all those houses. That was our original concept, and we drew Hopeton Bentley Lane, and came in and showed it to your staff, and we had frontage problems, we have right-of-way problems, we had curb radius problems. We had, I mean, you talk about waivers, you would have had to give us like about, 150 waivers.
Was that with this number of lots, or was that with the original number of lots?
With any number of lots, because one of the problems is you need to have street frontage. and you can only have like so many houses on a private road. I don't know how many it is, but there's a certain number of houses you can have. I think it's 5 houses or something like that. And we actually had a plan that I really liked a lot, but it just really didn't work, and we had really sharp turns. And but if you ever get a chance, drive down Hopeton Lane. It's right on Abrams, and it's one way, and it's got these little cute houses. That was where the staff lived that did all the work on the Scott property there.
Yeah, we never saw that plan, right?
No, your staff did. You didn't see it. It didn't make it off the planning table.
So I think I'm like Doug, where we should preserve the right, just like we did it at,
You're talking about Lancaster.
on Lancaster, that we preserve the right, just like we did on that development on Newtown Road.
I agree.
Because we're never going to have a walkable town if we don't take the opportunity to get the right-of-way when we can get it, even if it doesn't get built at this point. County Line Road, I personally am okay with not doing it there, but because it's across the street.
I'm okay with just preserving the right and everything else the way it is.
Yeah, Lancaster's too busy
On
of
the
a road to
sidewalk
not
issue.
consider having it on someday on both sides of the road. County Line, probably, if this is the most development that's ever going to happen on County Line, it's already a developed road.
And Lancaster already has that little bit of a footpath thing going there too. So in some way, that might be an issue that we have to address in the future, and we might as well preserve the right now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So am I hearing correctly that we're generally in agreement on preserving the right to the sidewalk on both sides, County Line Road and Lancaster, but not to ask for that to be built?
I think Susan was more talking about, and me too, talking about Lancaster as opposed to County Line. Lancaster only.
And so you wouldn't ask for either on County Line? That's your thinking?
I would.
I think it's
Interestingly,
already
the
on the
applicant said,
plan, isn't
yeah,
it?
the applicant says he can do it, and the right-of-way is that big. Well, maybe we leave it in.
I'd leave it in.
If
Can't
it's on the
hurt.
plan, leave it.
Can't hurt.
Okay.
Right.
There's 10 feet between the edge of pavement and the right-of-way on County Line Road, which you already have enough room to put a sidewalk in. So that's what we're showing. And it's 14 feet on Lancaster, so really, the right-of-way exists, that there's enough room to put a sidewalk in.
Okay? Good. Even on Lancaster. Yeah.
So looking at the memo, I don't mean to disclude any comments that aren't in the memo, but looking at the memo, are there any particular waivers that we are especially concerned with?
Well, I want to follow up on a question because Mrs.
Go ahead.
Devlin said something. When, by virtue of having the right-of-way, can we compel a homeowner to later down the road put in the sidewalk, or it would have to be at our expense? Because she made mention of being concerned about being required to put in a sidewalk on her property where she has mature plantings, and I don't know if that means there's plantings in the right-of-way, or if we don't have right-of-way of every house, or how does that work?
Under the first-class township code and the second-class township code, the townships are, and the borough code, municipalities are empowered to put in sidewalks and then charge the abutting landowners a per-foot cost of putting in that sidewalk. Now, Radnor is a home rule charter. I don't know if the home rule has made has any provisions in it regarding sidewalks, whether they've changed that or anything like that. But the general rule is yes, that can be done. As far as the ownership of the right-of-way, I'd have to research, whether or not the township actually owns that, how much time the township owns of the right-of-way into these various properties.
So again, just to clarify on this property then, you're saying that we have 10 feet on County Line and we have 14 feet on Lancaster. So we have the room for a sidewalk, but is that the same as having the right-of-way for the sidewalk?
That is the same thing.
Okay, so
the right-of-way is the room for the sidewalk.
Okay.
In simple terms, I don't think there's any actions needed if you're not making me put in sidewalks, because I think there is adequate right-of-way. You agree? There's adequate right-of-way for sidewalk?
If you're dedicating that right-of-way to the township, is that correct? Or I guess
Yeah.
I assume Lancaster is a state road, right? Okay, so either to either PennDOT or the township.
Well,
Then, yeah,
it
they-
doesn't matter who owns it. I mean, you've got a
Right.
right-of-way. You can do whatever you... I
Right,
mean,
but you're giving it up, and if that's the case, yes, there doesn't need to be a separate easement for the sidewalk.
Aside from being unhappy that it's 10 lots, Mr. Bentley and I are just going to have to agree to disagree on that one. The only
I think
waiver
you're
I'm...
coming around, Susan.
No,
I
I'm
think
still
you're getting there.
I think some of the turning circle and the radius issues and squishing up against Mrs. Devlin would all be solved if this were only 8 lots. I mean, I think that's the reason you need...
We are not squishing up against
No,
Mrs.
I mean,
Devlin.
no, I'm sorry. I'm saying that if we wanted you to widen the roadway and all that stuff, with 8 lots, you'd have more room for it. The only waiver I'm still really have concern about is the turning in the cul-de-sac. So I'm going to go home and measure my cul-de-sac. I've never seen a fire truck down my street. I don't know how that would actually fit, and that'll be a good piece of information for me to have. The rest of them.
Yeah,
The way this-
Susan, we're not asking for a waiver on the cul-de-sac bulb.
It's the right-of-way for
It's a right-of-way for the bulb.
No, I'm sorry, the cul-de-sac turning radius.
Yeah, that's what we're talking, for the bulb.
it's required to be a 40-foot radius, and that's what we're providing.
The right-of-way radius is 42 feet instead of the required 60 feet, is what maybe I'm
But that's the
misreading.
right-of-way. That's just the right-of-way. The paving is 40.
Okay.
That's for
So
setback purposes on the buildings.
Okay, I was misreading it as the turn, okay.
Thanks.
What else have we got? Well, I think we're in agreement. We'd like to see this again with a lot of these issues taken care of. Is that? How are we doing on timing? David, it's preliminary, right?
Yes, and it was just submitted, so the clock, I think, will go to March.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to table? Do we even need a motion to table?
Oh, sorry. Not specifically, but normally it's done, so I'd recommend it.
I make a motion to table the plan pending further action on all the waivers and review by the engineer of what's been discussed tonight.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just for my clarity, I'm a little slow. Do you want me to write up some kind of summation of the waivers, or are you going to write up, I mean, kind of...
Well, I think what will
We talked
happen
about the
is-
sidewalks, we talked about the cul-de-sac, I just don't want to keep talking about the same things every time we come in here.
Mr. Bentley?
Yeah.
I mean, we would look to you to prepare a written waiver request. I believe you already provided one, but you're going to need to add all these others that Dave has raised.
Okay.
And so that's something, normally we look to the applicant to provide that to the township.
What, do you want me to include the discussion that we've had here? I mean...
You can. Normally, all we look for is the waiver request
Okay.
and then the
All right.
explanation of why it's needed and should be granted.
All right,
But-
great.
I mean, also, we'd like to see all the little minor things taken care of so we can only have a few issues
My
left
engineer,
to talk
he's going
about.
to take care of all that stuff.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question about the sidewalks. If you were to put sidewalks in later on, it would become the responsibilities of the homeowners who abut that sidewalk. Is that something you'd want to consider being part of the homeowners association, putting the funds together for?
I think that's in your ordinances. I think that's required in wherever they were. And actually, one of the things that got brought up about the sidewalks was if they were in Lancaster, do you really think somebody's going to climb down over the wall and go down there and shovel the sidewalk? I mean, technically, they're supposed to by law. But I think that's covered under your ordinances. I don't think we have to do anything in the homeowners association.
That is correct, although it can be, the homeowner association could be written up to make it their responsibility, and therefore they step into the shoes of the residents. Because I'm sure there's, large subdivisions within this township where they have sidewalks where it is in the declaration of the homeowner association.
Right, and then they bump
responsibility
up
of
the
these-
homeowners association fee to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be. What, you want me to write something up that, in case the sidewalks ever get put
Well,
in?
It's clear that we want to preserve the rights.
Right.
So maybe on a contingent basis, it should be in that homeowner's agreement.
Okay. That's fair.
That seems reasonable.
I think Regina's point was that otherwise it falls to the 5 homeowners, 1, 2, 3, 4, who back up to Lancaster. That's what she was trying to say, and so wouldn't it be more equitable to have it be just the homeowners association's responsibility? That was your point, right?
I agree.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I agree. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to back up for one moment to our previous agenda item. We need to address a waiver for the Austell subdivision from Section 255-21B1N. We recommend, due to the limited scope of the submitted plan, we're looking at possibly recommending a waiver for
A partial waiver.
a partial waiver from the requirements of that section for details of man-made features within 500 feet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, old business, is there any old business? Skip?
I had thought after our previous meeting when we were talking about the zoning change at Conestoga and West Wayne,
The C1A?
the C1A, I think for benefit of both the property owners and the public at large, if it would be possible to do 2 one-pagers, so to speak, that would lay out on a side-by-side basis the setbacks, the building coverages,
Between the two proposed plans?
between the existing zoning
Okay.
and the old zoning.
And the-
Because a lot of people say, oh, this is going to affect my property, and they may know more than the public or myself at this point. I think it'd be useful for the next discussion to have that in some way formatted that it could be up on the screen or at a minimum a handout for the public at that meeting in January.
Well, we're considering 2 different proposals, so we also need to see existing, so that'd be 3 pages?
Well, that's the next part. I was getting to that.
Sorry.
The other thing would be to possibly show properties that are not in compliance with the existing code, and I think there was some effort by the committee working on this language to show properties that would not be conforming, sorry, that's the right word, not be conforming in C1A. But I wonder how many of the properties do not conform to C1 as it is. Because there's a certain push from the landowners there not to change anything, but maybe a lot of people are already in non-compliance. And that is not as important, I think, as the 2 one-page analysis, but.
That's something that Dave and I could do, but it really, I think, would take some, people from both our firms to go out there, walk the sites.
Yeah.
It's a pretty extensive process, and since it's extensive, it's then costly. That would be my only worry. The comparison, I could put that together, no problem.
Well,
But to figure out if each particular property conforms or does not conform with the existing zoning, in some cases it's readily apparent, but other cases you got to be out there with measuring, surveying, all like that. So it's a little more difficult.
What was the source of the data then that the committee that drafted the C1A, how did they come up with that chart of the different properties?
I have absolutely no idea.
I believe that we have some very diligent citizens who put together that B version, and that's where that analysis, was created.
But then that's not an engineered document. In other words, our engineer didn't pass on that, our solicitor didn't pass on that.
If
we
it's the
rely on
B
that,
version,
that's
I believe that's the version that was put together by Barron.
So we need to know that, that's not something we can 100% rely on because it hasn't been done through channels.
I don't know. I won't disparage Barron's engineering skills.
Yeah, you can certainly consider it, that's true. Well, I'd still like to see the 2 one-pagers side by side, and if everybody else on the commission agrees, I'd like to recommend that we have that for January.
Okay.
Yes.
Just for my clarification's sake, I was told by John we were going to discuss C1A tonight. That's not going to happen?
No.
Okay. That's the reason why there's no one here?
We just did that.
No,
We just
we
did that
had agreed
last
to
week.
discuss it in January.
Okay.
Oh, right, he said the next meeting. There you go.
This is still the same meeting from last week.
Yeah, yes, well, John was confused by that, so.
By definition, as some might say.
Okay, any new business? Move to adjourn?
Second?
Thank you.